22-250.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be going over the range day and kind of the groups that we're going to be getting with these 40 grain VMAXs out of the 22-250. I've got really high hopes for today, so let's get into it. Let's kind of look at these loads. So for each of these three powders in this series, we are going to be using, like we said, the 40 grain VMAX bullet. Now, the thing about the 40 grain bullet is that it's not going to eat into that case really at all. It's a super short bullet and it's super light. So hopefully we get good velocities with everything. The only, I guess, downside is you can't load these bullets long just because they are so short. You're not going to have a lot of bearing surface into the neck of the case. With these, we had to load them to 2.36 inches. So it's still well within SAMI of the 22-250. It'll fit in the magazines well. It'll chamber well. So I've got high hopes for these. We'll see kind of how it goes, and hopefully we can get some good groups when we get out to the range.
For our groups today, we have a 26-inch Savage 112 and 22-250. This gun, it's fairly old. It was bought early 2000s, late 90s, somewhere in there. And it has a BSA 6 to 24 power scope. So it's nothing too crazy, but it definitely gets the job done on some coyotes and things. So we'll use this for our groups for these 40 grain VMAXs. 22-250 Varget load 1. .42-38. The Varget loads, Varget pressure. We don't really have any cratering on the primer, but there is a little bit of a swipe there from the ejector. So it's higher in pressure, but I don't think we're quite to the max. Okay, we've got the first Varget load. It's about 2 MOA. I don't know if we're going to keep going with Varget. We'll try another group and see if it gets better. If not, this will probably be the best group we get. 8208, 40 grain, 22-250. Initial velocities and groups. 4405. Let's take a look at the brass. We have the piece of brass here. We have a little bit of an ejector mark, a little bit of cratering on the primer, but that's probably out towards the top end of the load, so we probably won't go anymore just given the pressure. Shot 2. IMAR 8208. 4327. Here's that first group. Looks like right around MOA, maybe just a touch over, but it's got some potential. We had 2 shots touching and 1 flyer off to the right there. 8208, group 2, half grain down from initial load. Group 2, shot 2. Shot 3, 8208, group 2. Here's the second group. Again, we're right about MOA, maybe just a touch over, but you know, it's grouping fine. The first 2 shots are always going to be good shots, but then that third shot kind of flies away. So maybe it's a hot barrel, maybe it's just the powder not wanting to give a good group. IMR 3031, low load, shot 1. .4290. Shot 2, 3031, low load. Shot 3, 30-31 initial load. Here's the first group with 30-31. First shot's up here, and then second and third. So, I mean, we're about 2.5, 3 inches there, and then about 3/4 here. So I think that one could have been just a flyer, but we'll get some more groups and see what happens. So here we have the group for the Varget. I've really had high hopes for Varget powder. I've heard good things about it, but in this case with the 40 grain VMAX bullet, it really didn't do as well as we had hoped. And the best group we got out of it was 2.1 inches. From there, we went to 3 and then 3.5 inches. So realistically, for us in this case, Varget was probably the worst powder. Now, I'm sure that in other applications, other cartridges, even other rifles, you would probably get good groups with Varget. It had really good, consistent velocities, but overall for groups, it really wasn't impressive at all. On the other hand, we have IMR 8208. Now, I've never used this powder before, but it seemed to be a really good powder. The point of impact on both of these groups was super consistent. They were kind of in the same general area, and the velocities were really good, and they weren't super spread out throughout the group. So I think realistically, this powder has a lot of potential. The only issue I foresee with this powder is that we can't really play with seating depth. These bullets are so short, and they don't really have a lot of room to either sit them out a little further or to put them further down in the case. So I think for going forward, I don't know if we would use this powder just because there's not a whole lot of change that we can put into the loads. I mean, we can change the charge weight a little bit. We can play with that, kind of see if there's something closer to this higher end where we got 1.3 inches. But realistically, to get it smaller, we may just have to shoot more groups and see what it does. Tested today was the IMR. This has been our go-to powder when we want accuracy and when we want something to shoot well in the 22-250. This is kind of what we go to. And well, the first two groups really weren't anything special. In fact, if we hadn't had another group or something else loaded, I really wouldn't have thought to go back to 30-31. I mean, both of these groups are 2 inches, if not more. So realistically, 30-31 did not start off looking like it was going to be a good powder for this rifle. This last group here, it kind of saved the group, if you will, for 30-31. It's 1.2 inches. You had 2 shots there stacked on top of each other, which for the first 2 shots, I thought we had it made. But then that third shot, again, it just kind of had that flyer. So the first 2 shots were good in almost every powder. They were half-inch groups, if not better. But then that third shot really threw the group over MOA. So now begs the question, is going faster always better? We'll probably do another video on that in the future, and we'll kind of talk about it then. So now, the whole point of this series was to see if we could obtain good accuracy beyond 4,000 feet per second. Now, we got right around MOA, just a touch over with some of these groups, and then the majority of these groups were actually over 1.5 to 3 inches, almost 4 inches. So realistically, can you obtain a level of accuracy? Yes. But is it going to necessarily be the best accuracy that you can find? No, it's far from it. But it is kind of fun just to see what the limits are of cartridges and things. So you guys be the judge. Was it a good level of accuracy over 4,000 feet per second? Or is it just kind of a dream or an idea that we can get accuracy over 4,000 feet per second? Thanks for watching.